Ladies and gentlemen, Twitter is heading towards bankruptcy. It's not going to go. It's not going to go bankrupt tomorrow, but it's heading towards. It's taking an Enron turn into the abyss. I'll read you Yahoo Finance, an article the other day. The link will be below. In the second quarter of 2021, Twitter expects to record revenue of $980 million to $1 billion and an operating loss of $170 million to $120 million. They're going to lose about $170 million next quarter. They're letting everybody know this. It could be $150 million. Who knows? Could be $170 million. Could be $125 million. Doesn't matter. They're losing a lot of money when they're supposed to be this behemoth, this social media behemoth. I thought social media was the wave of the future. People, I think, are finding out. I mean, young people aren't using Twitter. They're probably like moving away from Instagram, but they're using Instagram and other social media sites. They're not using Twitter. But Twitter does not expect to grow its revenue in the second quarter, and it looks that the market was not ready for this lack of growth after strong earnings reports from other tech companies. From what I understand, Instagram is owned by Facebook. And you look at every other major tech titan, whether it's Microsoft, they got into gaming eventually, and they're in a whole bunch of things, not just software. Apple obviously is in iPhones and other things. What Facebook, like I said, what is Twitter? What's going to grow Twitter's revenue? They're looking for subscriptions. They're looking for a subscription-based service when it was free this whole time, because not enough people want the free service. They don't have enough daily monetizable users, a metric that they created that nobody can verify. Again, a metric they created that nobody can verify. At least you can kind of understand, okay, look, they're losing $120 million. They have well over, $3.5 billion in debt, something like that. Like over $3.5 billion. And so they're not growing, and this could be the best stock in the world. I could be wrong. It could be the best company and just, poised for such growth and, but who's going to advertise on Twitter when you have 74 million Americans who've been alienated and marginalized? Twitter has one set of rules for Democrats and liberals and left-leaning voters, and another set of rules for conservatives, Trump Republicans, and President Trump. Okay, they haven't even given their evaluation on LeBron James's tweet stating "you're next," and then you had an officer lose his life. I mean, not directly related to that tweet, but you better believe if the tables were turned, they would say, "Oh my God, this conservative tweeted this, and look what happened, and oh my God." But they didn't suspend him for his tweet, but they banned President Trump. And in a court of law, nobody has ever accused or charged or indicted President Trump for... That's the best thing that ever happened to Trump, by the way, not being on Twitter. Twitter was the worst thing to ever happen to Trump's presidency. Okay? He utilized social media, Twitter included, to get to the presidency, and then it was his undoing in many ways. Okay? Speaking of LeBron James, he didn't have to insult him and NFL athletes. There are things that President Trump shouldn't have done. It didn't help him at all. It overshadowed from accomplishments like allocating more funding to historically black colleges and universities than any president ever. Trump did this. This is the horrible monster. Prison reform legislation. People talk about systemic issues. Yeah, Trump addressed that. It was President Biden, our beloved President Biden, who signed the crime bill, and he's the one responsible for the 100-to-1 sentencing disparity. So you talk about systemic issues, look no further than the Democratic Party. But hit subscribe to this channel right now. You can go to hagoodman.com and read my writing in The Hill, The Huffington Post, Salon, The Jerusalem Post, The Federalist, other publications. And if you want to support my voice long-term to my Patreons, thank you very much. Very, very much. To my new Patreons, thank you. Your support is greatly appreciated. But ladies and gentlemen, it's tanked for the sixth straight day. I deleted my Twitter account 3 years ago. Okay? 3 years ago. I became an advocate of the Second Amendment because of my experiences on Twitter. When I went to the LAPD and filed a police report on it, just using the Twitter account, the Twitter handle of somebody who threatened me. And so, and the police officer said, yeah, you need to arm yourself. So I did, legally, and, if you're a law-abiding citizen, you can do that legally. So it's like, nothing good comes from any interaction on Twitter. There's not, at least Facebook, you can say, I deleted my Twitter account and Facebook account 3 years ago. But you could say that Facebook, at least you can meet up or find people that you lost track of, or friends, old friends, people dear to you that you haven't seen in a long time. You could track them down or find them on Facebook, not on Twitter. But Twitter is like the Lincoln Project, the completely disgraced Lincoln Project. People that went after the Vietnam veteran Max Cleland, triple amputee hero, who opposed Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld and Lincoln Project foreign policy that led to completely destabilizing an entire region of the world and countless untold suffering and chaos and mayhem and sorrow and lives lost. And then the Lincoln Project is always, they do this snarky, they think they're cool or hip. It's like they don't realize, or maybe they do realize, that they're being simply used and taken advantage of, and maybe they're taking advantage of the Democratic Party, but their founders completely disgraced. You have people who went after veterans simply to push Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld's horribly failed foreign policy. I can't stand when people are like, well, Bush was bad, but Trump was worse. No, he wasn't. Trump was actually a great president in terms of accomplishments. You need to know something about international relations or history or the magnitude of what he accomplished, being the first president to step foot in North Korea. What did Bush accomplish? Nothing. Zero. Nothing good. Nothing good. And and because of Twitter, he is a good Republican. And President Obama can do no wrong, yet he literally turned a country with a failed NATO intervention. Because of his failed NATO intervention, it is now a failed state in Libya. Twitter is utilized by AOC and Bernie Sanders to funnel votes back into the Democratic Party. They will never vote for Medicare for all, ever. They will never pass single payer, ever. We're the third most populous country in the world. Listen, if maybe 10,000 people watch this segment, who knows? If you stumble upon this and you manage to go 8 minutes in and you're on the left, and you're like, oh man, he used to be a Bernie supporter, now he's Trump. Well, President Trump, May 1st, 2021, we should have already been out of America's longest-running military endeavor, counterinsurgency conflict, and war in Afghanistan. We should have already been out of there. It was President Trump who negotiated the deal to get us out. Counterinsurgency conflicts we should never get into again. We should have learned the lessons of Vietnam. And we didn't learn the lessons. One thing that Trump did that was his defining achievement, in my view, is to force Biden to remove Americans, and hopefully Biden does. I think that he's going to try to keep us there indefinitely, like I knew Democrats would. But I even forgot where I was going with this, but Twitter is a place where, Medicare for all. Single payer, the concept exists to funnel votes. It's a racket. It's a scam. It's simply there for people like AOC to get into Congress, promise the world, and just say, oh, well, we achieved this with the Democratic Party. It's like, well, you could have... who was that guy, Crowley? The man that she defeated? He would have done the same thing as AOC. AOC literally did nothing. What on earth has she done in terms of a profound, transformative, progressive policy? that she implemented or she helped push through Congress? Nothing. Not Medicare for all, single payer, universal basic income, reparations. Nothing she stated that she believes in has passed the Democratic House. Nothing. Or that, I should say, she stated she believes in, and from a Bernie Sanders, transformative point of view. Twitter exists so that Bernie Sanders and others can just funnel votes back into the Democratic Party. It is the most obvious racket in the world. Or Twitter, I should say, is utilized by Bernie Sanders and others to simply funnel votes back into the Democratic Party. Getting retweet. People are losing their lives without Medicare for all, man. Yeah, retweeted 1,000 times, 10,000, 20,000, 1,000,000 times, whatever. And it becomes an ideal. It becomes a value system. And it is a sleight of hand. It's an illusion. It's like this magic trick that you don't, you're looking and it seems that they're serious, but at the last moment they say, hey, you know what? Trump is worse. I mean, he's going to sign prison reform legislation and he'll be mean in his tweets and he's an authoritarian and despot. Anyone who said Trump is the worst president of all time, and let's just assume that they're saying he's worse than Bush, doesn't know anything about history and has no grasp of the horrors and the failures of the Bush administration. If anything, in terms of accomplishments, he's one of our great presidents. Best president of my lifetime. A lot better than President Obama. Ask the people of Libya and other countries. It was Trump who ended covert arms deals. And then, of course, it helped the Washington Post. Yeah, he ended this arms deal and it helps Russia. Everything they don't like helps Russia. And that also is funneled through Twitter. Anyway, Twitter is a propaganda tool. That's obvious. It's utilized as such by the Democratic Party. But it's the most vapid, meaningless place. It's the MySpace of political media. That, in addition to the fact that really nobody cares about it, other than oftentimes apoplectic, but always morally superior liberal Democrats, you've alienated and you've marginalized half the country. So you're not going to grow. Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, they didn't marginalize all conservatives or Trump supporters or 74 million Americans. Twitter did. So it's going to continue to tank. And in my view, it'll eventually go bankrupt. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe right now.